Welcome to Bryson's of Lancashire. In this video we're going to take a look back at some of the projects that we undertook in 2023. So sit back and enjoy the video, and we'll see you at the other end. This project, which we undertook in the summer of 2023, was on the St Anne's Parish Church. The bell tower that we're working on was erected in 1890. The original church was constructed in 1873. The repairs that we undertook on the church range from brick replacement, as you can see here, to stone replacement, stonework refacing, and a lot of lime mortar repointing to both brick and stonework. Here we can see a piece of stone that we had to basically cut and fit in to replace a piece of very, very eroded stone. The piece of stone that I actually used to replace the eroded piece, that's the bit you can see there, was actually some reclamation stone. Initially it had been part of a Victorian townhouse, and if I remember rightly it was actually a lintel above a large window opening. But obviously I've cut it down and shaped it, etc. for this particular job. You can see there on the top left of the window opening the new piece of stone that is now fitted and bricked around. Still got to paint around the windows and the mastic, so probably another day on it yet. A fair old bit of work was done around this window, from brickwork, stonework, painting of the frame, and putting burnt sand mastic around the frame. Wedding photos and things obviously all this is seen, so here we can see a piece of sandstone that I purchased from a quarry in Darwin. It was to replace one of the louvers in the church bell tower that had eroded away. We actually did two of them. I decided to cut it in the back of the van, purely because it was lifted into the van with a forklift and it is a big heavy lump. I didn't fancy having to drag it out. I had to be very careful with me measuring and me cutting with this particular piece, because we didn't want to have to go back to the quarry and get some more stone cut, because it's not cheap stuff, sandstone. Of course, working on your own is fine, but sometimes you really need a hand. I struggled and struggled and struggled trying to get these planks to the top of that scaffolding to do the stone louvers. Very awkward. About 150, yeah. And this one's thick carbon. No, so it's not breathing, so it's like to shell look. You know, they all want coming out, right? Well, all of it wants coming out, all damn stone and everything, redoing, but you know, they haven't got like 30 grand, 40 grand to do that. And of course, lime plastering is one of the particular jobs I undertake. I'm actually a qualified plasterer. I've served my apprenticeship many years ago and spent many years working as a plasterer, obviously doing modern stuff as well as the traditional. Now this is pure lime plastering. There's no gypsum, there's no cement or anything like that in the material. Very interesting video if you've not seen it. Obviously it's been walls brushed, walls dampened down, scratch coat applied, straightened up with the old. I'm not having to be perfect at this stage. Just make sure you haven't got any great big lumps in it. And of course, as always with lime plastering, it's riddled with animal hair. In this particular case, it was a combination of horsehair and goat hair. Just a batch I had to hand. Now this is your lime finishing plaster. Whenever you mix it, you don't want to do it like, say for example, multi-finish or board finish. You want it a little bit thicker, but not silly thick. It's a combination of lime putty and a very fine sand, and we mix it at 50-50. So it is half and half, isn't it? And it makes a lovely, creamy finishing plaster. And all you do, you just put your putty into your mixing tub, along with your fine sand. Get your old paddle mixer in there and give it a good old thrashing with a paddle mixer. Nothing hard and fast about it. The awkward bit is when it comes to the finishing and your timing. That's what you've got to learn with lime plaster. We've wet up the float coat and now we're going to apply the putty finish. See you in a minute. So here you can see the finished product, so to speak. This is your pure lime plaster. Like I said, there's no gypsum in it, there's no cement in it, there's nothing but lime. So your backing coats are lime and your finishing coats are lime. This section of video is the refacing of eroded sandstone. Now these particular pieces were eroded back by about 2 inches and they've been refaced with lime mortar. Dwarf trowel, which is that little chap there. So we'll just give it a once over with that, and that flattens it all out. And once we've done that, let it set in again, and we go over it with a fine sponge that it's moistened. We'll let it dry in again, and then we go over it with a dry sponge, and that's the end process. So there you can see from that, the cavity is fairly clear. It's just that bit at the bottom, which we'll remove when we take the rest of the brickwork out. Right, go back to your cup of pigment just to tone it down a bit, otherwise it'd have been... This particular job was done in the depths of winter. Awful weather, very, very cold and windy. But what we were doing was replacing some wooden lintels that had been put into this building many, many years previously. Basically, it was to allow the window fitters to remove and replace windows safely. And here we are refacing some eroded stonework. This is an early Victorian property, huge building. Very ornate stonework around the front door. It was a pig to do, but we got there in the end. We got it looking lovely when we'd completed the project. There is with a bit of a sponge, because obviously you're backward and forward with the trowel, you keep catching it, it's impossible to get. Whereas with the sponge, it just very finely takes those marks out of it. So when you look up at it, it looks like carved stone rather than mortar that's been thrown on there with a trowel. This particular job was part of a big project that we've been doing pretty much throughout 2023 on a building known as the Trawlboat Cottage. A lot of work involved with this, including stripping paint and cement slurry off all the brickwork. What we're doing here is we're attempting to get this damned heavy chimney pot right to the top, to the chimney. It was not an easy task on my own, I've got to admit. It was several attempts before I managed to get the damn thing to clear the scaffolding as I pulled it up. But once it was up, and we went on to fit the chimney pot to the recently restored chimney. You've seen in the beginning of this particular section of video the stripping of paint from the brickwork on the chimney using a cup disc. And once we'd done it with the cup disc, we went over it with a 40 grit flapper disc to make the bricks all nice and smooth again. After that, I removed the cement mortar from the brickwork and replaced it with a prompt cement mortar. Yep, prompt cement. I did this purely because it's an exposed chimney, it's the time of year, etc. Now, prompt cement is sort of semi-breathable. It's supposed to be breathable, but I'd say semi-breathable. Yeah, but you know, that chimney was in a hell of a state. It was absolutely saturated, and that's many years of people painting it, covering it with damp cement mortar and so on. But it's now breathing again, and it's actually now dried out lovely. So I'm making a new set of lead steps for part of the chimney. The steps were missing. Somebody had basically put wads of sand and cement where it should have been lead steps. So we've whipped the sand and cement off, and we've made some new lead steps to fit to the chimney. Let's have it done properly. And we're down. Paint stripping again. Getting the top of the apex done. Once we strip the paint, get rid of this yucky cement mortar. So it's like that over there. What we've got to do now is give the old pot a bit of a polish. So I'm going to go down and get a bit of rag, and some WD, it just makes it nice and clean and shiny. So this is a salt glazed clay chimney pot that we're using to replace the modern clay pot. We've got 3 of these to put on eventually. However, a little tip for you. With your salt glazed pots, if you want them to look nice and clean, give them a bit of a spray with some WD-40 and a wipe with a rag, and they come up lovely and clean and shiny. In this clip here, we're applying some traditional lime mortar repointing. Now this isn't an NHL or anything like that. This is a quick lime based mortar, and as you'll see in the videos, if you watch the videos in full, exactly how we go about doing it from start to finish. In this section of video, we're compacting the lime mortar pointing with what is known as a churning brush. Very important part of the process. Here you can see the now completed pointing. The clock there was fitted in 1899, and it was supplied, well, manufactured and supplied by a company known as Potts Clocks from Leeds, and I believe that they're still going strong today. We ended up fully restoring the clock face, including gold leaf on the hands. There to do. And then we're down to the next level. So hopefully by lunchtime I shall have this bit. Right, well, let's talk about tools of today being refined slightly. I mean, take the old brick trowel. You have to excuse the rust. It's been sat up here for a week. But the old brick trowel, pretty much the same. Rubber handle on it, whereas they'd have had a wooden handle, etc. But, you know, the same kind of tool in general. And of course the spirit level, well, those are all made of aluminium and plastic bubbles on them and that kind of thing. Well, they'd have had a wooden level, we should have had glass bubbles on them, helping with putty, as I've seen in the past, linseed oil putty. Now, same with the hammers and chisels and things like that, all pretty much the same. A big part of the summer was taken up restoring, repairing, whichever way you want to look at it, this Victorian bell tower on a church. Of course, it was all done with traditional methods and natural lime materials. There's no modern stuff used whatsoever in the repointing, the brick replacement, or indeed the stone replacement. It was all done with lime. There was only one thing on this project that you could class as modern, and that was the paint that I used for redoing the clock and, of course, the two window frames. The reason that we used a modern paint, obviously, is because you can't get things like the old lead paints and so forth anymore. Also, it was a special metal paint which turns the rust into a primer. Absolutely brilliant stuff. And then the hands we gilded with gold leaf, and they came up absolutely gorgeous. Working solo is a bit of a problem, but you do get round it. I mean, I've got two pulley systems set up on this particular project. One for lifting heavy stuff and one for lifting up lightweight stuff like buckets of tools or buckets of mortar. The heavier lifting gear that I set up was for lifting up lumps of stone and bricks and that kind of thing. But the wind was always a problem on this job. It didn't matter what side of the bell tower you went on, you were blown by the wind. Now, pulling stuff up was a bit tricky because of this wind. It was tangling everything up. As you can see here, I've just got the bucket of gear to the top, but all the rope is tangled around it now. Didn't matter how careful you were, how you tried, how you set your pulleys up, you always ended up with it tangled because of this damn wind blowing. It was just a terrible summer for weather on this project. Now, previous to this, we've been working on the Trollboat Cottage, and the weather was amazing, absolutely amazing. And literally, the day we started on the bell tower, the weather broke, it started getting windy, it was raining a lot. It was absolutely awful to do. In this clip, what I'm actually doing is recutting a piece of salvage sandstone. This was a fairly recent job, just before Christmas 2023. Yeah, there was some very badly eroded stone to such a degree that there was actually a hole through into the building and it was letting in rain. So I recut some salvage stone to replace the eroded stone. Now here I'm trying to remove the eroded piece of stone. You can just make it out there on the left hand side of the screen. And what I've done, I've used a grinder to cut slots into the stone, and then I'm gently breaking it away. It was an absolute pig to get to. There was a downspout in the way, there was a scaffold tube in the way. I couldn't get in with a big cutter just to cut through the stone. So as you can see here, I'm having to use the small grinder, cut a series of slots, break them off, and keep repeating that until I got through the piece of stone. Yep, just one of those jobs. But it had to be done because it was letting rain into the building. It's part of a biggish project we're doing. We're now back at the Trollboat Cottage project, and what I'm doing here is cutting through the centre of the mortar joint. This is to release the pressure between the brick and the mortar so that I can gently chip it away with the pick. Doing it this way basically stops you damaging the bricks. Now you can see there, it looks like I'm damaging the brick. However, I'm not, because where I'm chipping is just cement mortar. Now these bricks were never a nice, clean, edged brick. Eventually I managed to remove all of the cement mortar repointing that had been done many years previously. This won't get repointed now till spring 2024. It was basically part of remove the paint, the cement slurry, the cement mortar pointing to allow it to dry out. I mean, these walls were absolutely saturated, and they've now started to dry out nicely. I didn't realise I needed cutting. However, there is one over the other side I can put in, so I'll get that out of the way first. As usual, there's a helicopter going over. Rather low today, that. And very noisy, as you probably heard. Right, so we've got this one brick here. I'm just going to bed her in. Usual procedure. And then climb down again. Third time I've been up and down today, that. It is Monday though. You're allowed to forget things on Mondays. As usual, what we're going to do here, we're going to push plenty of mortar from that top there. Even if it takes you a week to do it, don't matter. You've just got to get it full. Don't worry about how long it takes. Getting the job right is more important. Well, what are we doing next? Gold leaf. That one's done. That's the minute hand. Now I was going to put that on, but to do that bit there will cover up that bit there, which means I won't be able to get the gold leaf on. So I'm going to have to wait now until that's gone tacky. That could be 2 hours. So I think we might have to get up top and do a bit of pointing and come back to this. But don't worry, you won't have to wait 2 hours, because with the technology and editing, etc., I can come back to this video in seconds. Right, we're going to attempt it. Wish me luck. You watch the second I open this up, the wind will gust and blow it away. Yep, spoke too soon, it did. It did. That's the only problem with this hand being stuck. I'm going to try and gild it in position. You've got the wind against you. But, you know, what can you do? What can you do? Oh, it's all blowing away now. It's all blowing away. It's all going uphill. See the joys of restoring stuff. I mean, that's just blown out of its packaging, that piece. It's gone. It's gone. Well, the gilding went well. We got it done. The other clock, I managed to get both hands off, and they were basically gilded off site. I took those away and did them, which made life much easier. Next, we're replacing the dreaded louvers. These were absolutely awful to do. Heavy to get up there, awkward to get in. Everything about it was awkward, but we did get there in the end. which I suppose is the reason we were there.
Right, let's try and lift this bugger in. That's all right.
At this point I was actually balancing on a couple of planks because the scaffolding was probably about a metre below me. You know, it wasn't set up for doing this, the scaffold. So not only were they heavy, but I had nothing to stand on. After about an hour of fighting with it, I finally managed to get it in. However, I come to do the second one thinking it was going to be the same, an absolute nightmare. But once I'd actually managed to lift it up into position, which again wasn't easy because I'm balancing on these damn planks, I pushed it in, turned it, and it just dropped straight into the rebated slot, which was absolutely brilliant. This one I'd epoxy resined a couple of pieces of stone on because the rebates cut into the stone mullions had eroded away, and I wanted to make up that bit of a gap, so they didn't rattle about in the wind. And the inside of this particular bit is a timber frame with the timber vents on the other side, and the timber was just a little bit tight on the edge of the corners of the stone, so I couldn't quite get it in, and it was up there, so it's not like I could just trim a bit off the timber. I didn't want to drive that stone out again. It took me forever to get it up. Of course, brick replacement is one thing we tend to get a lot of. This particular one here, we'd actually gone in to do some stonework repair, but there's some badly eroded bricks right next to the front door, and she was under the impression that that was it, it was knackered. But I said, no, we could change those for you. So that's what we ended up doing. This next clip, I'm removing thick black paint off this stone lintel and recutting the face of the stone. When I do this, it basically makes the stone, well, you could say new again. It gets rid of all that mess, muck, chips, etc. They look lovely when they're finished. Right, so that's that stage done. You're going to get it a lot smoother. There's not a necessity for it on this particular piece, so which I'll be doing that. Now, again, you know, don't just sort of rush into doing it. Well, so far so good. Well, we're now in December, and the weather's turned for the worst. However, I've taken on a cement mortar pointing job, purely to see me through the colder times of the year, because lime takes a long time to cure. where cement, basically 48 hours, and it's going to withhold its own. It's not going to get frost damage, etc. But lime would, and they didn't want lime, so we took it on. Unfortunately, prior to us starting the job, somebody had already started it and absolutely butchered the bricks. So it wasn't the neatest job we could hope to achieve. This was one of those rainy day jobs. It was a friend of my father's had asked if I could knock a doorway through for him in an old outbuilding. Not something I'd normally take on, in all honesty. But I said I'd do it, if we had a rainy day where I couldn't get any outside work. So that's what we did.
Not the lightest things in the world. And again, make sure that it's packed to the bottom there. Plenty in. First job is get rid of that dust and muck. And we don't want to wet these. If we wet these up and the bricks will just float on them. Magic liquid on it, just to take away them little smudges. And we get the odd smudge from your trowel, however careful you are.
Again, this was a little repair job I squeezed in for somebody. The brickwork had all collapsed due to a ladder being put on it by a roofer. But it was all redone with lime. It was all done by the book. Lovely little Victorian townhouse. And the client was most pleased with the finished result.
Another day done. So tomorrow it's just a case of coming and cleaning off the job. Wash down any splashes on the brickwork and put everything away. There you go, job done. It's day 2. Oh yeah.
This particular clip is of the, let's say, conservation project on the old boathouse at Lathom Hall in Lancashire. Well worth a visit, by the way, if you've never been. They do guided tours around the Georgian Hall. Beautiful old building. Anyway, what we were doing here, like I said, is conserving the ruins. And this particular day, we were undertaking some lime mortar repointing of this really, really early Victorian brickwork, quite historical stuff. And the pointing, when finished, was done in the old penny roll style. Again, there are videos on the channel of us undertaking the works, including some of the brickwork reinstatement, etc., that we undertook on the project itself.
I think it changes later on this week, about Wednesday. Weather gets bad again, it goes cold as well. It's not freezing, but you know, not as warm as now.
In this clip, we're applying the float coat on top of the scratch coat on this lime plastering job. Now, both of these coats contain animal hair, obviously your aggregate as in sands, and your lime. You never go over your scratch coat when it's still soft and, shall we say, damp. You need it to fully dry out. The scratch coat used to be known as the cracking coat for obvious reasons. So it's very important that it is dry before you attempt to do your float coat. This particular job, the scratch coats have been on for 2 weeks, so they were lovely and dry. You do wet it up when you come to put your float coat on, but it's actually set. So all you're doing is taking the suction out by wetting it up. Once you've applied your float coat, you'll then need to go over it with a feather edge or a derby. just to get it nice and straight again. And we're working to the original wooden dowel bead. Now this property was again an early Victorian house or cottage. It wasn't very big at all, and a lot of the original lime plastering had decayed, been replaced, damaged, etc. over many years. So it was all stripped back to brick, and we refloated and refinished it again, all with lime. I always try and leave the original dowel beading if possible, try not to replace them. Here I'm going over the fresh float coat with what is known as a devil float. Now the devil float has got some fine pins in the end of it. And what it's doing, as you can see on the left hand side there, it's putting some fine scratches in. Now you'll note that with the scratch coat, it's like a triangular shape, quite deep scratch. But you don't actually do that for your float coats, because all this is to do is to hold the finishing plaster on.
That's on the wall now, down there the other side of this chimney rest. And then these two slides either side of the chimney rest. It's not very thick on there.
Now this particular project was quite an interesting one to do. It was quite tricky. Basically this stone panel had completely eroded away, and it had to be reproduced in lime mortar. It took me several weeks, keep adding a bit etc. until it was completed. It's riddled with animal hair as well, and hold it all together. Not the easiest of things to do, and we didn't really have much idea of exactly how it looked when it was first carved. But I think it looked okay when it were done. And now after a year of it settling down, it actually looks pretty much like it's stone, which is good. Well, what we have here is a bucket full of bubbling hot quicklime mortar. All that we've added to this basically is quicklime powder and water, and it's produced that heat, as you can see.
It's an easy task.
And again, if you're interested in the facing up of stonework, there are some excellent videos on the channel that you could take a look at. But don't forget, if you're not a subscriber, you won't be able to see them. So if you do want to see them, feel free to subscribe. What I was doing there was basically trying to fill out this huge gap at the back of it with bits of stone and lime mortar so that I could reface the stonework. And finally, a bit of a stone repair. It's a lintel above the fireplace that had cracked right the way through. So we cut a deep slot into it, inserted a piece of steel in a bid to stop it collapsing. And it seems to have worked. So it's been in over a year now, and it's still going strong. And that brings us to the end of these video clips. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have and you want to see the videos in full, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. And it's also the end of 2023. But we'll be back in 2024. So don't forget, give us that big thumbs up. Let's get those numbers up on the subscriptions. And let's build this channel between us. Have a happy new year. See you in 2024 for messing about with more old buildings.